Matthew.
Morning, bros. How are you, buddy?
Yeah, g'day. I was just going to put my earphones in.
Oh, it's Bowie.
Yeah,
Hello, mate.
g'day.
You know what I've never understood, Bowie? How does a hotel room get so messy? You know what I mean? Look, I'm a pretty clean guy, but you stay in a hotel, it just gets very messy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All these years, mate, I spend one night in a hotel room, it looks like a disaster.
Oh, mate, that's because, mate, you just you think someone else is going to do all the work, you know?
Yeah, maybe.
That's what
Had
it is.
had a little rock pool dinner last night. Very lucky.
Ah, beautiful. That
Who
sounds
Who we got?
beautiful.
Oh, we got Shepherd, Bluesy, Batesy, Josh, Katie, Lauren, Maddie King, Rosie. They're all getting on here. Mate, you look rugged up. You look real cute.
Oh, it's freezing here, mate. It's freezing.
Any tips to survive 6 days with your brother?
Is that all it is? I thought it was going to be more.
I'm only doing 6 days with him, mate. That's it. Usually, yeah. Then he's off. He's off in love, going Italy and whatever else he's doing.
How long are you going away for altogether?
I got 6 days in Mykonos, 5 nights, and then I go to Croatia with Lavers for a couple of nights. So I got 3 nights with Lavers in Croatia.
Okay.
So that'll be cute. That'll be
Well,
cute.
who's Labours?
Ollie Lavers.
Oh, with Ollie.
Sold your house, mate. Sold your house.
Yeah. Shit. Sorry, I didn't realize. Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
That'll be a couple, a couple thing.
Yeah, couples. I get on really well with him and Rach. Yeah.
Yeah, no, legend. Oh, you know, Marsh, mate. You just do this. Yeah, you know, mate, better than. But he loves spilling stuff, food on him.
He certainly catches it for later. I'm probably more equipped for 5 days with your brother than you. Let's be honest.
I wouldn't, mate. I haven't done that for bloody 30 years. I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
I had like 2 hours of dinner with
Dixon. Brendan Stead's on.
Hey, Dave.
Hello, mate. I'll wait another minute, then I'm just going to go around and put Adrian back in the hot seat and ask some questions. Mate, the first question, because I think like Maddie King's on there, Josh is on there. Yeah, mate, what advice? I come to you, I ring you up, so mate, I've started off in real estate. I'm half, and the guys can, we know what it's like all in, and generally when we start, we're not always all in because we don't know what to do sometimes. So sometimes we think we're in, but we're not in.
Yeah.
How does someone that's just starting their career go all in? What would you say to someone if it was your nephew coming to your house and going, I'm whether they're 20 or 30, but they're 3 months in real estate, they like it, but
yeah,
they're just not sure, or they're just not giving it all yet, or they're not getting the results they want to see.
Yeah. Well, look, firstly, they have to accept that there's going to be some personal sacrifice. It's I know we're all about work-life balance. I get that, and I'm a big advocate of that. But we all know that if you make certain sacrifices for, say, 2 or 3 years, if you're just launching or if you're off track, then that's going to set up the next 3 or 4 years, despite market conditions, because there's such a huge focus on the moment on a shifting market and all the challenges that brings about. But I mean, we all know we can't control that, but we all know that sensible hours is one thing. Focusing on stuff that is either going to result in bringing a property to market or result in a property that's on the market getting it sold is really what you should be focused on. So there's no real secret to it, apart from connecting with as many people as you possibly can, and building as much data as you possibly can, nurturing with those people as best you can. And when you're in front of people, just be really authentic, really be honest, act like that trusted advisor, go into solution phase rather than sell phase. But I think, to answer your question, if you're off track or you're just launching, I think it would be naive to think that there's not going to be some form of personal sacrifice.
I mean, we've got very politically correct around work-life balance, and when I look at where certain other people are at in their career, and I get that, and people like Batesy and that, I really work on making sure he's got that balance. But I think we're too politically correct at the early part of our career. At the end of the day, it's a very rewarding financial job, and in the early stages, it needs hard, dedicated, focused work. And I don't think there's any secret that people get in a little bit earlier. They're generally an equation. They generally do a bit better, don't they?
100%. I've seen that many, what I call rough diamonds, who I didn't think would cut it that well, but they've been obsessed with prospecting. They've been obsessed with putting in the hard yards, and it does pay off. There's no doubt about it. Not always, because that particular person may either have an ego, or maybe they don't have the right authenticity when they do get in front of people. But when you think about it, every activity we undertake, whether it's personal marketing, prospecting, calling past clients, calling past appraisals, is just a means to an end to get in front of people. And then that's where the magic happens, when you're in front of people. So you can do all of that right, but if you get in front of people and you're not authentic, and you're not, you don't have conviction, when you speak, and you don't speak with confidence and calmness and solution based, then it's not going to work either. So
Roger Wardy's got to be the best example of that. Yeah, I mean, probably one of the hardest markets, that Kingsford Kensington market, very traditional. Not size matters, but Roger probably in his day got up to 160, 170 kilos. He was a big boy. He was awkward. No one would really give him a start. Mate, that guy pushed and pushed. Mate, every Saturday when I was developing, he'd call me every Saturday afternoon and let me know the results. I think now he's on track for 2.5, up to anywhere from 2.5 to 3.5 mil he's riding at the moment now. Awkward looking guy, even a bit awkward in person, but you do the work, you're genuine, and you're authentic, and you actually care. And I think the big thing that we keep talking about, but people I think lose sight, is he gave a lot of value, and now he's reaping the rewards. He's got his health on track. He has lost a bit of weight. I'm not saying it's a weight thing, but it's all linked. You would have watched his career.
Yeah. I work with that office. I do a lot of work with that office. So it's a very good example in that Roger focused on what he can control. So as you said, presentation-wise, he was a bit of what I call a rough diamond, which is probably what I'm talking about. But what he could control was his product knowledge. And as you know, Dave, his product knowledge is there's no better in that market that he chose to specialize in. So he focused on that. So that way, the hard work in terms of prospecting, hustling, when he did get the opportunity to get in front of people, even though personally might be a bit awkward, he was like an encyclopedia for that core market.
Let's talk about product knowledge, because we missed that. I mean, he was at every single open house. He was at every single auction. He knew his market, I mean, we probably actually don't talk about, we talk about, motivation, we talk about headspace. We don't really talk about product knowledge enough. Talk to me about, what you found the importance when you had that Coogee market sewn up.
Yeah, it's not that difficult. A lot of people talk about product knowledge. Like, it's actually not that difficult, because all of us work in an area, we can easily track what's happening. And, I still to this day, I would probably refer to the Domain or Real Estate app, whichever one I've got, and constantly look at, what's just been listed, what's just been sold, and constantly connecting with agents to find out what they're quoting, or what it's sold for. And frankly, if you're not doing that, I mean, how many times have you been at a listing appointment, and a vendor mentions a property that's on the market or just sold, and if you don't know what the guide is, or you don't know what it's sold for, that's one of those moments where you'll lose a listing and the person will say, "I was the flip of a coin. I couldn't really put my finger on it." That sort of euphemism, which people, rationalize towards, even though they're telling you that you probably didn't have good enough product knowledge. So also driving around, every signboard that goes up. So if forensic product knowledge is not part of your day-to-day plan in terms of knowing exactly what the guide is and what everything's sold for, that's a big mistake. That's a big mistake, because you look at it on both fronts, right? So if you're a listing appointment or even just a price check, and you don't know everything that's come onto the market or what's sold for, then you look at, when you're talking to buyers, whether it's an open house or a negotiation, in order to help justify what you're selling, that's a massive mistake, where I think a lot of people put too much energy into, being a salesperson and trying to use a script or a dialogue and all that, where Roger Wardy's the perfect example, where he may not have had any of that, but he knew exactly what every property had sold for, And another good example, Dave, would be Michael Pallier, who's probably number one agent in the country, right? I mean, he's an encyclopedia for the Harbourside market. He could tell you, that the last three owners pretty much of most houses in the area and what it sold for, And let me tell you, he's an example of someone who probably doesn't do a lot of prospecting. He'd probably make, 6 to 10 connects a day, but high quality connects a day. But when he does have that opportunity to get in front of someone, his product knowledge is 10 out of 10. And again, also someone who's quite personally and socially awkward as well, Dave, as you know.
But I think what I've learned about some of these people, and you mentioned that, and even me trying to understand Gavin, all that sort of stuff. By the way, my prospecting tool I used to just follow your car around Monday to Friday. That's what I used to do.
Yeah, a lot of people did that. Yeah.
But what I think a lot of people miss with these guys is the hustle. And when you see these successful agents, how would you just explain that hustle?
Yeah, I think what it comes down to is it's like all these things. Like, well, what do all these main agents have in common? And you'd think I'd say they've got the best negotiation skills, but it's not. Or you think I'd say that they're polished and articulate. Like even Alex Phillips, for example, I wouldn't say he's that articulate. So you look at those three examples: Roger Wardy, Michael Pallier, Alex Phillips. So what they do all share is a high degree of discipline with everything they do. Number one. Number two, great energy every time they're in front of someone, okay, or even prospecting. Great energy. Number three, really strong mindset. Okay, so enough that just don't deviate from whatever mindset they've got. And number four, they're all process driven, mate. They're all process driven. So if you look at any of their prospecting plan, it's usually some form of task-orientated prospecting, meaning they make it easy. So they'll either get handed a piece of paper in the morning or press a button on their CRM, and there's 20 or 30 calls to make for that day that have been scheduled from a week ago or 3 months ago. They don't have to think about it. And therefore that 1 hour of condensed prospecting, it just gets knocked out. And then the rest of the day is in reactive mode, which unfortunately a lot of agents think it's chaos. They come to me and say, oh, I'm not really organised. I went to a listing appointment, then I went to a buyer appointment, and then I had to present an offer. And I'm saying, that's bloody beautiful. That's exactly what you should be doing. So don't mistake, chaos and one appointment after the other being dollar productive appointments as being unorganised. That's except today that really only 10, 15% of your day needs to be structured. 85% of it needs to be reactive, meaning you get a call, someone wants to make an offer, or you get a call, someone wants to meet with you to sell their property. That's fine. So I think a lot of people.
You're talking about a 2-hour block of prospecting, yeah? That 2-hour block's got to be there. Yeah, that's got to be there. So let's put your not seat, mate. Look, Adrian, I appreciate your call, but I know we're looking to put it on the market, but mate, I think with what's going on, I'm just going to wait, Adrian. Look, I appreciate it, mate, but I think I'll just sit this one out for a while.
Yeah, I understand. Look, David, it's completely up to you, what you do in terms of time frame. But let me ask you, regardless when you do decide to put it on the market, what is the motivation to sell?
Mate, I'm the semi, mate. We need to get into a house.
Okay. So you believe it's inevitable at some point in the next 12 months or so that you're still keen to get from a semi?
Oh, mate, this market's pretty wild. So if I had to wait a couple of years, I could do that. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just here to tell you, David, that the gap between semis and freestandings is just continuing to get larger. Number one. Number two is I'll support whatever decision you make. But in saying that, there is a pattern. Obviously, the peak of the market was late last year. That's fine. We're still selling in a good market. It's just the market late last year was probably at the peak within an inch of its life, and now we're still in a very good market. But there is a pattern emerging. So I think if it's inevitable that you will make the move, my recommendation is we do it when there's a bit less stock on the market. I do feel that later on the year, you'll be in direct competition with a lot more sellers, in my opinion. And frankly, I think the gap at the moment, at least between now and the end of the year, is likely to stay the same between a semi and a freestanding, but I can see that extending. So look, I'm here to support.
So Bowie, in that, I mean, that's great dialogue and all that sort of stuff. Are you going to stay on the phone, or are you going to come and try and see me? If you know in real life, are you going to come and? Yeah.
It's a fact. So if that was on the phone, I'd say, look, I completely understand. Are you open for me to pop around, have a chat, and go through what the pros and cons are of actually staying or moving? Because there might be some benefit to you, David, in staying. And let's have a look at that. Is it possible to do an extension on your property? And if that's the case, let's just be aware of what the construction or renovation costs might be. But absolutely, I'll be the first to advise you that there is value in really enjoying the street you live in, and there is value in really getting on with your neighbours as well, because it can be an unknown if you move that may not be the case. So if we can house your requirements by doing an extension, let's have a look at that. But it'd be important to know what the costs are involved in doing that as well. So I've often gone down that exercise, and then they do get a quote and realise that it's not that feasible.
And my point in that is in this changing market is that it's often, it used to be, yep, we're selling, or it could have been a quick phone call. Now it's that extra step, isn't it? We need to get back in front of the client. All right, look, I appreciate your offer of 980. Mate, I was hoping for $1,050,000. You know what? Look, it's only the first week of the campaign, Adrian, and I appreciate everything you've done. But, mate, I think I'll just wait. I'm in no rush, mate. I'm in no rush.
Yeah. No, I completely understand. Let's just have a look at, Dave, in terms of what the original motivation was to sell. Is that still the case?
Oh, we're looking to move from Port up to Evans Head.
Okay, no problem. All right. Well, look, the difference in the offer of $1,050,000 and 980 is less than 10%.
It's a lot of money, mate. It's a lot of money.
I get it. It's less than 10%. So we're talking about.
You told me I'd get between $1 million and 50 and 1.1, mate. I trusted you. I put it on the market. I spent my marketing. I've done everything you told me to do, Adrian. And then now you give me an offer like this.
Yeah. Look, I completely understand. And what we need to look at, David, is if the campaign has been comprehensive, and what we can see, because we're sitting down together and I'm showing you that
what changes in 3 weeks, mate. Like 1 minute you're telling me $1 million and 51.1, and 3 weeks later you're now telling me 950. Like, seriously.
Yeah, I completely understand. And look, I'll respect whatever decision you make. The only thing I can let you know is that the campaign has been extremely comprehensive. As you can see, we've had over 8,000 web views, 30 groups through, 4 contracts. This is the best offer that we've had.
You're in Port Macquarie and you've had 2 people through, mate. You've had 20 email inquiries and 2-3 people through. Like, 2 people, mate.
I completely understand, David, and I'll support whatever decision you want to make. And given it's 8% less than what you're after, you've got to decide: is the market between now and the end of the year, assuming you still want to sell, going to improve by 8% or not?
That's the dialogue, guys. There, that's the line there. That's the money. That's the money, guys. Because the media out there is doing it for you.
Correct.
And that's where we don't need to be too. I say to the team, Adrian, like, we've got to stay positive, and we've got to be upbeat, and we've got to have high energy in this market, because the agents get caught up in all the bad news. Now, we need to deliver the facts, which obviously is bad news, but the biggest upside is, there would be no one on the planet to say the market's going to improve between now and December.
Yeah,
please find me that.
Yeah. And look, that is so true, that the media will do 50% of your vendor management. What you've got to do, what I'm going through lately with a lot of clients is, number one, you got to turn up, meaning you've got to stick to your vendor management process, which is twice weekly vendor reports, speaking to them every day and getting face-to-face with them once a week. That's number one. Number two is you need to be submitting offers on every single week without fail. So when that offer does come, that you do make a recommendation, there's some benchmarking there. You've actually got some benchmarking. Number three is, if there was only 2 groups through, then you need to have prepared that owner for that at your set to sell meeting or your expectation meeting, saying, we've got our first open for inspection this Saturday. I just want to give you some benchmark expectation metrics of what we're going into. And frankly, what we'll be doing when we catch up on Monday or Tuesday is reviewing the entire campaign, because there's only one of 3 scenarios. We're either going to be off track, on track, or well above where we need to be. And frankly, my benchmark expectation metrics based on my last 3 sales in Port have been 7 groups at the open for inspection, 1,500 web views, minimum of 1 contract and minimum of 1 offer. Now, when we catch up on Monday, I'm just letting you know that is the benchmark. If we're at or above that, we don't need to make any changes. If we're not, then I'm just here to let you know, based on my last 3 sales in the last 2 weeks, I'm here to let you know that we will be reviewing, the presentation, the marketing, and the price, and you need to be open with that. So it's no good just putting it on them and then them not having any benchmarking. You need to walk into the campaign, and then frankly, after the first open for inspection, what can they expect in the second week? Because a lot of owners, as we know, think that the second week then tends to go up. And
you know what I love about these skills, Abo, is you take these into the better market, and then you absolutely kill it. This is where you actually get your skill sets right. This is a big one, and I know I say it in my words. I'd love to hear it in your words, but a lot of agents start getting negative and they drag their feet into meetings, and clients hate poor energy. When I talk about to make sure that you've got positive energy, but you're delivering crap news, how would you explain that?
Look, I explain to clients all the time and say, look, you like your doctor, lawyer, and accountant, they don't discriminate with the news they provide you. But what they do is advise you of what the reality is, and then provide solutions. I'll be the same. So when I catch up with you on Tuesday, when we sit down and revise the campaign, if one of those three scenarios is that we're off track, the good news is I'm going to have solutions for you and make recommendations to get on track. And in fact, here are 3 case studies where we've done exactly that.
Great dialogue, but you've used a lawyer, a doctor. They've all been to uni for 6 years and they're all very professional. So we can only have the next lot of dialogue if we're actually treating our career like that and acting like that, and they actually see us as an expert. If you haven't called them back, you left the lights on after the open, you left the door unlocked, you forgot something, the signboard went up 2 days later, you've lost trust, then that's not going to work, is it? Like, in this market, you need to be, you need to deliver the news in a professional, with no tone, and be 100% professional in your career. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. But you do think about it. You think of doctors, lawyers, accountants. They do come up with indiscriminate news, meaning they deliver it whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. However, they've got solutions. They've always got a solution ready to go. And you just need to let them know that this is no different. This is absolutely no different. And sometimes I'll tell the owner myself, I say, look, every seller deserves to know the truth, and you're included in that. And when I meet with you weekly, I'll be delivering you the truth. But if in the occasion that we are off track, I will have solutions, multiple solutions, in order to get back on track, because I know that there's less buyers, but there's still buyers out there. I know that the market's come off, but it's still a very positive market. And yeah, I just think, if you use that analogy, and you're right though, you've got to act. You can't just talk about doctors, lawyers, accountants. You've actually got to act that way and talk with conviction and veracity and confidence when you're actually delivering it,
And I think one of the biggest mistakes, I was working with Brendan, won't mind me sharing, if not, it's too bad anyway, but Brendan had a property 460, vendor was not going to take anything under 460. He was shitting himself, presented it off at 430, thought he was going to probably, get slayed, and the guy goes, get me about another 5 and I'll sell it. Now he's got no A. So assuming value in a changing market, assuming what an owner might take, because like the media is doing a lot. So there's a lot of fear with a lot of our vendors. Now they're not portraying it, but we've got to give the vendors a choice to take an offer, don't we? Like you talked about submitting offers, but do you see in this changing market a lot of agents really screw up, and they can cost their clients a lot of money by assuming value or assuming what they'll take?
100%. Worse than that, Dave, they're becoming the second vendor and the protector of price. So what they're saying to themselves is, oh man, that offer, that's crazy. I'm not even going to sell. My owner will freak out. I'm not even going to. That you can't think that, because let me tell you this: when the market was going up, we got prices wrong. Why? Because they were selling for a lot more than we thought. As the market's coming down, we will also get prices wrong because they're worth more than what we think that they're worth. Right? So what you might think, oh no, it's got to be worth that, man. It has to be. No. Just throw that out the window, because let me tell you, if you can facilitate an owner from moving from one stage of their life to the next, anyone on the market at the moment, let me tell you, they're not out to try and achieve a suburb record. They're there to move on with their lives. And it's normally circumstance based. So, they can't get rid of a kid. If they need a bigger house, they need a bigger house. If they need to downsize financially or whatever, or it's they're on the market to sell. They're not testing the market. So don't ever think that any offer is a crazy offer, because the other part about it is most owners don't tell you 100% what their true motivation is. And they'll convince themselves, and they'll try and convince you that they're not a seller under X. However, if you're not there to deliver what market value is, and let them decide, and then back it up with these objective metrics and these benchmarks that I'm talking about, because numbers don't lie. You can't just say, oh, it's worth this because it's on a main road. It's worth this because the bedroom's too small. Forget all that nonsense. It's just like, go back to objective data, which is the web hits, the social media views, how many people came through, and compare that with what the dismissal rate is. How many people have dismissed it from looking at it online to actually not coming through, And the elephant in the room is always price. And if you're not constantly, number one, on a weekly basis submitting offers, number two, getting a pulse on where the owner is as well. What I'm finding a lot at the moment, Dave, is a lot of agents are giving feedback, which is great. But then they come to the reserve meeting, if it's an auction or deliver an offer, and the owner's still up in the clouds, you know. So what they need to be doing is every week at their face-to-face, be asking the question, David, you know, based on all the feedback I've given you and the offers and everything, if the auction was tomorrow, what do you think a price you'd be uncomfortable less than?
And this is where the industry's lost a bit. I mean, you know, I learn off the, you know, the Purtis and the Farahs, and, you know, in the old days there were a lot of smoke and mirrors, a lot of offers being thrown. And I say to guys, well, that market's moved, but the what if questions, mate. What if I got 950 now? What if someone rang me from Sydney and they wanted to drive up and only pay $1 million? What would you do? If the auction was today $1 million, you know what? If we had an offer of 980 and we lost that 980 and that back buyer's only at 950, what would you do? What would you do in 6 months' time if 950 was the best? What would you do? Would you take it? Well, then why wouldn't you? Like, what if? Yeah, we've probably been through that. The big question I want to finish off with, and something that I really feel for our team, is that, mate, we've had 2 years of really growth. We've had 2 years of a busy market. We've had 2 floods in our area. We've had COVID. We've gone from a very flat out market to now a turning market. It's a lot, mate. It's emotionally a lot for the team to actually. There's been no real break or pause from high to low to COVID to floods to this.
Yeah.
So my one is how they manage that quickly, and then my second point is, and we all know it, and everyone's alive if they don't. This is just so fucking hard now. I'm fucking done. This fucking sucks. This is not like it used to be. I'm over this. Like, this is shit. I got an offer. It fell through. I finally got my eye to take. Like, we're going to have those days. How do we get through that period of, because now we can't slacken off because we've got a declining market. We've got to be good. And also we're going to have those days in the car. Just some tips to finish off today.
Yeah, no worries. So number one, you got to outlist your way out of this market, because you have to accept that this is the type of market that you could list 10 and only sell 7 or 8 of those. Fact, reality, accept it. That's just the deal, right? We were spoiled that our list to sell ratio was 100% for a while, if not very close to that. So just accept that you could do everything right and you still might hand 2 or 3 out of 10 back. Just accept that, right? Number 2, in terms of headspace, you've got to accept that this you got to play the long game. Like, this is a chapter of your career that will go down as probably one of the most challenging chapters of your career, but it's not the end of the book. You know, this is one chapter. We're only, for some people, it'll be quarter of the way, midway, 3/4 of the way. It doesn't really matter. But you must have faith in your ability. You must have faith in your brand. You must have faith in like property as an asset class. Because let's face it, you know, as an asset class, it's still a $10 trillion asset class in Australia, which outweighs the other 3 asset classes combined, which is super, commercial property, and the ASX combined. So it's an incredible asset class. You work in an incredible industry. And this is only one chapter or a couple of chapters of a very, very, very long book, you know?
Beautiful. Well, I'm just going to finish off on that last bit about managing that stock. You made a great point. We're going to out. I've been working with Adrian. His stock levels are starting to increase. And I said, mate, what you've got to understand is up there on that board, realistically, like you just said, there's maybe not 10 listings. There's 10 up there, but there's, you know, I know talking to Brendan, there's 2 or 3 not listening to him. Now, over the couple of weeks, they might start. But if they don't, well, guess what? They might be sitting up on the board, but they're not real listings. And at a point, we will give our attention to the vendors that want to work with us and vendors that will want to give us time. So as those stock levels increase, you'll also, not everyone will be a workable listing, and you'll be able to manage more stock than you can in a market where you've got 10 active vendors. Would you agree, Bowie?
100%. 100%. Yeah.
Beautiful, mate. We've had some really, really good stuff today.
Yeah.
Mr.
Awesome.
Plusey, finish off, buddy. I know I gave you a chance the other day and you stuffed me around. What's the biggest thing you got out of today? You there, Plusey?
There's a number of factors as well, and I think just Adrian stating that outlisting the 7 to 10 just on that last note. I think if you go in with that headspace, do everything right, it's a fact of life. That's what's going to happen, and just get over it. So I think that's good advice.
Funny, mate. I asked you what you thought, and suck up fucking brown tongue freaking Brendan has to put a little message up. Awesome stuff, Bowie.
Yeah.
Hey?
Yeah.
Mate, you're out of control, Brendan. You're out of control. He loves it. He loves it.
Oh, he loves it. He loves it.
All right. I'm going to go get my plane. I'll see you later, guys.
See you guys.
All right.
Thanks.
Take care, guys.
Have fun.
Take
Bye,
care.
bye,
Have
bye,
fun.
bye,
Bye-bye. Bye.